Hey there, and welcome to our online workshop on how to balance your hormones and reboot your health. I'm Clara de Belliac, and I'm here with my colleague Carrie Fugard. So thank you to all of you who are here with us today and have taken some time out of your day to join us. I know that is sometimes not easy, right, given the busy lives that we all have, but I can promise you that today it will be worth it. Now, before we jump in and talk all things hormones, a quick round of introduction so that you guys know who we are and why we decided to bring this workshop to you. So my name is Clara de Belliac, and I'm a certified nutrition coach and the founder of nutrition consultancy Nourishi, where we specialize in women, family, and children's health. And this topic of hormone health is actually very close to my heart because several years ago, I was struggling with a hormone imbalance as well. And I was also diagnosed with a condition called endometriosis, which some of you may be familiar with, and that is actually associated with hormone imbalances. Now, at the time, my endometriosis was actually so bad that my doctors told me that I will probably never be able to have children. But after a year of working on my nutrition and changing my lifestyle, my body got back into balance, my health got better, and I was not only free of all the symptoms, but I was also pregnant. And since then, my work has really been focused on helping other women transform their health as well. And I have been especially passionate about working with women who struggle with hormone imbalances because I know exactly what it's like to be in that situation and the kind of dramatic impact that can have on your life. And I also know what it's like to come out on the other side and have your body back, have your health back, and feel amazing again. So enough about me. Carrie, do you also want to say a few words about yourself and your work?
Okay, thank you so much, Clara. Much appreciated. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I'm Carrie Fugard. My practice is Nutri360, based here in Geneva and online for international clients. I am a qualified nutritional therapist, but I started my natural health journey many years ago when I was studying psychology and then went into counseling for severe depression and anxiety. And then I went into studying and working in clinical nutrition and then further into functional medicine. So I suppose for a lot of you, this might be the first time that you've heard of functional medicine. Just a little bit about what it is. It is a systems-based approach for root cause resolution. So we are trying to find the root cause of disease as opposed to just addressing the symptoms. And we do this by looking at the interplay between health history, genetic predispositions, environment, and the connections between our body processes. So for example, if you come into my clinic with a lot of hormone symptoms, instead of just addressing the hormones, we'll look at production, conversion, and elimination, and all of the body processes that are involved in this. And at the very core of functional medicine is nutrition, as it's used as its healing modality. So I guess I came to work with hormones through working in functional medicine because hormones have such a huge role to play in all of our health, in all health processes.
That's great, Carrie. Thank you for this introduction. Okay, so let me now give you a quick overview of all the things that you're going to discover today. So first, we want to give you the rundown on some of the basics. So which are those hormones that we as women need to pay special attention to, how they work together, and also why it is so important that we keep them in balance. We're then going to go through the symptoms that can indicate hormone imbalance. And here you're going to get an opportunity to get an initial sense of whether your hormones might be out of balance as well. And then in the second part of the workshop, we're going to go over all those factors that we all have in our day-to-day lives and that can throw your hormones off balance. And we're also going to share with you 6 practical steps that you need to take if you want to restore your balance in hormones and reboot your health. So throughout this session, we're going to share with you a lot of practical information that you can start implementing in your day-to-day life pretty much right away. But if you then still want to have a separate conversation about your specific situation and your specific circumstances, we're also going to give you an opportunity to book a free conversation with us at the end of the session. So I'll tell you more about that when we come to the end of the workshop. Okay, so let's jump straight in and let's start with the hormone basics.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the hormone dance. So, to start off with, let's get into what are hormones anyways. Hormones are essentially chemical messengers that are made, produced in one part of the body, and then send a signal to another part of the body. We have about 200 hormones and hormone-like substances that have been discovered in the body so far. So, for example, vitamin D. It is actually a hormone in the body, not a vitamin. It's produced in the skin and then it's sent around the body to go and do its work and do its signaling. And every single cell in the body has a vitamin D receptor. So these hormones all work in conjunction together. They all interact and move around, affecting each other and how they work, as well as every single part of our bodies. So they affect our brains, our guts, our bone health, our lungs, our skin, everything. So I like to think of them as all being on a dance floor, all moving to a rhythm together. You can imagine them all moving around, doing a waltz, and then they're all passing on messages, one from one to the next, and then suddenly there's one or two that go completely haywire. They start having too much tequila, then they start doing the samba on the dance floor and completely throw off the rhythm of all the other hormones. And for us women, that is usually estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone are the 2 main female sex hormones. Of course, we do also have testosterone, but in a much lesser extent than what men do. And when our sex hormones are out of balance, they are very, very rarely alone. So problems may stem from issues with your adrenals, so your stress hormones. When you get stressed, your adrenal glands produce cortisol. We may have issues with our gut, our liver, our diet, or our lifestyle factors, or of course our thyroid, all of which we are going to be touching on today, because addressing your hormones, balancing your hormones, is a multimodal approach. So let's start with estrogen. Estrogen is a very, very powerful compound. It's so powerful, it's measured in 1 trillionth of a gram, and you only ever have a very small amount of estrogen circulating through the system at one time. The rest of your estrogen is bound up by a molecule called sex hormone binding globulin. This prevents excess estrogen from being overactive in the body. It also binds up excess testosterone. And this is a very important molecule and something that I want you to remember, because we will be coming back to it again later on in the talk. So we have 3 types of estrogen: estriol, estrone, and estradiol. Estradiol is the most potent of these 3, and it is part of nearly every single tissue of your body. It coordinates energy and metabolism in the brain. It's a potent antioxidant. It modulates mitochondrial function, so the energy within your cells, and it promotes cell survival. So that's when it's all in good shape. When estrogen is out of balance, we may experience a buildup of uterine lining, which is good if we want to conceive, but if we don't conceive, we want the uterine lining to break back down. It increases body fat, particularly around the hips, bums, and thighs. We can have depression and headaches. It interferes with thyroid hormones, increases blood clotting, affects libido, impairs blood sugar control, and increases the risk of endometrial and breast cancer. Then we come on to progesterone. So the main job of progesterone is to balance out estrogen. So it also prepares the body for a fertilized egg. So progesterone induces a sense of calm, a deep sense of love and connection with our community. It also maintains the uterine lining, helps use fat for energy, has antidepressant effects, facilitates thyroid hormone action, it normalizes blood clotting, restores libido, regulates blood sugar levels, and protects from endometrial and likely breast cancers. But it's all about balance. When it comes to hormones, the balance matters. As we know, it's never just about one hormone. They are constantly fluctuating and dancing together. So when we talk about estrogen dominance, it's actually the level of estrogen to progesterone. So when estrogen goes up, we want progesterone to follow. When progesterone falls, we want estrogen to follow. But for various reasons, there is this high gap. And when there is a high gap, that's what we call estrogen dominance. And as women, our hormones fluctuate daily as well as monthly, but they also fluctuate in response to food, stress, and lifestyle factors, all of which can create that larger gap. So some of the common symptoms, this is where I would like for you to reflect on your own symptoms and things that you've seen come up in your own body. You can pause the video here, get a pen and paper, write down if you recognize any of these symptoms in yourself. So unexplained weight gain, headaches and migraines, sore breasts, tender breasts, swollen breasts just before your period, excessive hair loss, new food intolerances and allergies. And that's a very that's not commonly related to or thought of in relation to hormones, but it's actually when estrogen goes up, it affects histamine, and that can lead to new food intolerances and allergies. So anxiety, irritability, and depression, you feel teary for no reason, you have bloating, unexplained bloating, insomnia, PCOS, fibroids, or endometriosis. This can be from estrogen dominance or low progesterone. On the other side, we have hot flushes, night sweats, brain fog, excessive hair growth, low sex drive, painful intercourse, morning stiffness, constipation, muscle weakness, and joint pain. These are all signs of low estrogen. These can happen at any time in a woman's life, but they're very common symptoms going through menopause, of course. So, of course, as I mentioned, these are not the only hormones that can become imbalanced. These two are just the heavy hitters, and they're the ones that tend to have the most impact. But we can also have low or high testosterone. We can have hyper or hypothyroidism. And our stress response may be completely out of balance. So we might have excess or not enough cortisol being released. These are all issues that impact the other 200 hormones in our bodies. And we must remember that our bodies are not broken. So when you see a title that says, fix your hormones or fix your adrenal glands, there's nothing to be fixed in your body. Your body just needs a little bit of love and attention in order to rebalance. So why should we rebalance? Why should we actually pay attention to these hormones? Why should we just say, well, I can cope with the symptoms? And some women think, well, it doesn't really matter. It's just something that we all go through. Or my doctor said, well, this is completely normal, but it's not. It may be common to have PMS. It may be common to have mood swings, but it is not normal. It is a sign that something is amiss in your body. And when we have disrupted hormones over a period of time, this can lead to cancer, depression, anxiety. Our hormones also play a big role in dementia, and Alzheimer's is the leading cause of death for women in the UK. And we know that women who have had a hysterectomy have a higher chance of having Alzheimer's. And this is not to say that if you have imbalanced hormones that you are going to get dementia. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I'm trying to express is the importance and the huge impact that our hormones have in our health, and just how important it is to actually look after them and to make sure that everything is working properly. Our hormones also influence autoimmune diseases such as Hashimoto's, of course, and rheumatoid arthritis. So one doesn't normally associate hormones with joint pain, but our estrogen has an impact on our synovial fluid in our joints. And then you might be thinking, well, I have medication for that. That's okay. But if you're just using medication and not addressing the underlying causes, then you're just putting a lid on top of a boiling pot. And eventually that pot can overflow. So let's get into the actual meat of this and discover what factors can drive hormone imbalances. So poor liver function and imbalanced gut flora. The gut and the liver regulate and balance thyroid and sex hormones through activation, conversion, and elimination. So the liver is where most of thyroid hormone conversion from the inactive T4 to the active T3 happens. And this can be hampered by an excess of estrogen. The liver controls estrogen levels in two specific ways. One, by producing that substance that I mentioned, sex hormone binding globulin. If it's not producing this effectively, then estrogen and testosterone levels can go up. Secondly, it clears out estrogen through phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So in liver detoxification, chemicals and hormones will go into what's called phase 1, where the liver changes chemicals into a water-soluble substance. From there, they go into a holding cell. And we can think of it like a processing plant. So it goes from one phase to the next into the holding cell. And then it goes into phase 2. And in phase 2, we have 6 different pathways. And our hormones use 3 of those pathways for elimination. So you can imagine them as going down 6 different tubes, or estrogen going down 3 of those different tubes. And from there, they get passed through the gallbladder, if you still have one, and dumped into the gut for removal. So if the liver is not working effectively, for example, if it doesn't have the right nutrients, if it doesn't have enough protein to work, if it's bogged down by toxins, either from environmental pollution, our food, stuff that we're using in our household, then it may not be effective in actually clearing estrogens. Once these compounds go through the liver, they get passed into the gut where they need to be cleared out. So this is why we need to be having a daily bowel movement. It is extremely important to be having a bowel movement every single day, not twice a week or 3 times a week, not even 4 times a week, but every single day. Otherwise, those toxins and your hormones are going to be sitting in your bowels and they are going to become toxic, even more toxic. So our gut bacteria play a large role in estrogen elimination. And there are certain bacteria in our guts that creates a compound called beta-glucuronidase. What beta-glucuronidase does is it hooks onto estrogen as it's passing through the gut, and it uncouples it from whatever is transporting it through, uncouples estrogen, and it recirculates it into the system. And this can add to estrogen dominance. Beta-glucuronidase is also associated with increased cancers, including breast cancer. Then we have bile. So bile is really important for the breakdown of fats. If we're not breaking down fats efficiently, we're not getting our fat-soluble vitamins, which are vitamins A, D, E, and K. It also flushes out toxins from our body, including toxic metals, as well as hormones, and what we call xenoestrogens. So xenoestrogens are external sources, like fake estrogens, that come into our bodies and they mimic estrogen within our body. And they can be 100 times more potent than actual estrogen in our body. Bile also has a role to play in further converting thyroid hormones. So from the inactive to the active thyroid hormones, there's an extra 20% conversion that happens within the gut. And this is dependent on bile and our gut bacteria. So the liver and the gut are key to hormone balancing. Nutritional insufficiencies. So due to a variety of restrictive fad diets, as well as therapeutic diets that are done for a too long a period, we may have nutritional deficiencies that will impact hormone balance. So something that many people have been afraid of for a very long time is fat and cholesterol. Now, we need fat and cholesterol in order to make hormones, both sex hormones and stress hormones. So just as high cholesterol may have been seen as a bad thing for many people, having your cholesterol at too low levels is also not very good for you. It also impacts mental health because we need cholesterol for neurotransmitters. So the omega-3 fats are essential in our diet, and these are used in every single cell lining of our body. They make cells more fluid to move around each other, and they also help with the signaling of hormones between the cells. There are some diets that are very low in protein, such as vegan diets. And if we're not careful with diets such as a vegan diet, and we don't have enough protein, then we don't have enough structural nutrients for our hormones. And low protein can also influence insulin and thyroid function. It's also really important during menopause because we need protein to repair damaged cells in the body. And during menopause, there is a lot of stress and there's a lot of processes going on, so a lot of repair being needed. Other common deficiencies in vegan diets are iodine, iron, B vitamins, zinc, omega-3 fatty acids, which are all required for hormone health. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should be eating meat. This is individual and reserved for a different day. But what I am saying is that if you are going to be on a restrictive diet, you need to take more care and be more conscious of your dietary sources of nutrients. Then deficiencies in vitamins A, iron, B6, omega-3 can lead to heavy periods. And of course, heavy periods can lead to a deficiency in iron. So iron is that double-edged sword. It's so required, but for many women, it's very hard to hold on to. And that's why Clara and I will be doing another talk later in the month just on iron. There are other factors that will influence nutrient levels besides diet, and that's absorption. So how well are you absorbing nutrients through your gut? And that will depend on gut acidity, bacteria, as well as gut integrity. And then there are things like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. And this can lead to B12 deficiencies, and it also impacts estrogen clearance. So again, the gut bacteria influencing hormones. Also, if there are any food intolerances, this can affect vitamins and minerals. Okay, blood sugar levels. So these are really important. Keeping your blood sugar levels stable is very important for hormone balance, because when we eat food, we have a release of sugar into our blood. The more refined and sugary the food, the higher our blood sugar goes. This then signals for a release of insulin. Insulin will push sugar into the cells where it's then used for energy. If there is too much or an overuse of insulin, this can lead to insulin resistance. This is essentially where our cells just say, we're tired of having you around. We actually just don't want you here anymore. And they just stop working effectively. And this causes inflammation in the body, which we don't want. It can lead to weight gain, and it lowers the production of sex hormone binding globulin, that really important molecule that I told you to remember. And with this increase, that can then lead to an increase in estrogen and testosterone, and lead to things such as PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. Essentially what this means is, when we eat refined carbohydrates, the higher that we have of that, the higher the insulin goes, the lower the sex hormone binding globulin, the more estrogen dominant we become. Then on the other side of the blood sugar curve, if our blood sugar goes too low, this signals a stress response. And in that stress response, we have a release of cortisol. In a minute, Clara is going to come onto that stress response and tell you exactly why it's not desirable. But what may be interesting to some of you is that during or after menopause, you may experience changes in blood sugar levels. And that's because estrogen and progesterone influence our insulin sensitivity. So if you are going through this period and you're having blood sugar highs and lows, then you may just want to tighten up your diet a bit by adding extra proteins and good fats to your diet.
Okay, so far Carrie shared with you some insights into how different body systems and different nutrients are related to your hormones and how they can affect them, right? And what I want to share with you now is more about the specific lifestyle factors that we all have in our lives, and that can also have a really big impact on your hormone balance. And the first one of these is stress, and especially chronic stress. So when you are under stress, your body produces cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And in the short term, cortisol does have some benefits. So for example, it helps to increase your concentration, it helps to increase your strength, and it helps to increase your ability to react, which are of course all the things that you need to be better able to respond to stress or to the source of stress, right? But what we also need to be aware of is that cortisol is actually produced from the same raw materials that are also used for progesterone production, right? So if you are under chronic stress, what will happen in the long term, that you will end up with lower progesterone levels. And this can of course then lead to hormone imbalances and estrogen dominance. And when you are estrogen dominant, you will start experiencing all of those symptoms that Carrie was talking about earlier. So for example, PMS, heavy periods, premenstrual breast pain, and potentially also reduced fertility. So for that reason, it is really, really important that if you are experiencing a lot of stress, you implement in your life certain strategies, it will help to reduce the negative impact of stress on your body. The second factor that can also really dramatically affect your hormones is sleep, and especially a lack of sleep. Now, a lack of sleep has a very similar impact on your body as stress, in the sense that when you are sleep deprived, your body also produces more cortisol than it should, and over time this can then lead to lower progesterone levels and also to hormone imbalances. Now, in today's world, most people are experiencing some level of stress, and many of us also chronic stress, right? And at the same time, many of us are also not sleeping enough. So you can imagine, if you take those two things together, those two factors that are pretty much a constant in a lot of people's lives today, then it's very easy to imagine how quickly you can end up with a hormone imbalance. Movement or exercise is another factor that can also influence your hormones. And generally speaking, if you are exercising regularly and if you're doing the right type of exercise, movement can actually be very beneficial for your health, right? So one of the things that regular movement or exercise will do is that it will help to improve your insulin sensitivity and your blood sugar balance. And as Carrie mentioned earlier, this is really, really important for your hormones. Regular exercise also helps to reduce excess estrogen, which is also very good. But if you are exercising too much, or if you're doing the wrong type of exercise, this can actually be counterproductive. And it can actually increase your cortisol levels and then cause the cascade of all of those things that I mentioned earlier with regards to stress and with regards to a lack of sleep. So if you are, for example, very enthusiastic about running and you tend to run an hour or more several times a week, this can actually start undermining your hormone balance. So when we work with our clients one-on-one, the first thing that we do is a very thorough nutrition, health, and lifestyle assessment. And only then we will recommend the kind of exercise that is most suitable for you and that will support your hormones and also your overall health. Now, another element that can also really disrupt your hormones are chemicals in our home products. And here we're talking about body products and cosmetics, for example, shampoos, creams, body lotions, foundations, perfumes, and all the other things that we're using on a daily basis. And the reason why these are problematic is because things like paraben, which is one of the chemicals that you will often find in these products, can over time accumulate in your body, especially if you're using these products every day, and then it can start disrupting your hormones. The same is also true for your home cleaning products. So for example, your dishwashing soaps, your floor cleaning products, bathroom cleaning products, and any other product that you may be using in the house. Now, a lot of these also contain these problematic chemicals, and it's really important to always be aware of what you're using. And if you are using any of these products, try to replace them with the ones that do not have these hormone disrupting chemicals in them. Plastic water bottles are also not great for you because the plastic actually contains certain chemicals like BPA, for example, which many of you probably know, that over time can start leaching from the plastic into the water that you're drinking and start disrupting your hormones. So it's much better to use non-plastic water bottles. And the same is also true for any other plastic that you're using in cooking or in food preparation. So for example, any plastic food storage boxes, any plastic kitchen utensils, and actually also dishes that are made from non-stick material, right? So certain types of pans that have that type of material that is very convenient to use, right? But actually in the long term, as it gets damaged or starts degrading, it will start seeping into your food and start causing you problems. And then the last thing I want to mention here that you should also be aware of is that your thyroid and your hormones are very intertwined, very, very well connected, and they affect each other. So if you have, for example, an underactive thyroid, you have to pay special attention to your hormones because if your thyroid is underactive, what will happen in your body is that this will affect the metabolism of estrogen, and over time, if you're not looking after that and not doing something about it, it can end up in estrogen dominance, right? And this can then, of course, also lead to all the issues we talked about earlier. On the other hand, if you are estrogen dominant, this can also start affecting your thyroid. And the way it affects it is that it reduces the thyroid's ability to produce thyroid hormones. So if you have an issue with either of these two, you have to pay special attention to the other one. Now, thyroid and all thyroid issues are actually quite a big topic, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. But what I will say is that Karen and I are actually running a separate workshop specifically on thyroid in June. So if you're interested in joining us, just drop me or Carrie a message, and then we can send you more details about that and how you can join it. So all of these factors that we talked about so far directly affect your hormones. Now, knowing all of that, what can you do to naturally restore your hormone balance? Here are 6 steps that you need to take to help you achieve that.
Okay, great. So the first step is testing. And these are some of the more common tests that I use in practice. So you remember in the beginning, I mentioned that there were 3 types of estrogen. Those 3 estrogens can be broken down into what we call estrogen metabolites. Some of those metabolites are protective, and some of them are carcinogenic and really bad news for the body. And it's through a Dutch test, which is a dried urine hormone test, that we can actually see how these compounds are being broken down. It is also through this test that we are looking at cortisol, melatonin, as well as liver detoxification and water-soluble nutrients. And this test has various options for women and men in different phases of their lives. So this test can be very useful clinically for diagnosed diseases and for prevention. Pairing up very nicely with this test is a DNA test. So I use panels specifically for the health issues that we are dealing with. So in this case, it would be an estrogen panel. And what this can do is assess risk markers as well as guide us further with diet and supplements. And this really targets the program for the individual. And then we can do a stool test, which can show us, first of all, the levels of beta-glucuronidase, that compound that moves estrogen back into the body. It can also show us levels of the microbiome, both pathogenic and beneficial. So, for example, someone with autoimmune disease such as Hashimoto's, which is very much influenced by our gut bacteria, we can see where this bacteria is sort of lying and try and help heal the gut. We can also assess inflammation, digestion, and if there is any gut permeability. And if there is any need for gut work, which there generally is because it's such a central part of our health, then that can guide us to exactly what's needed. Then, of course, we can do a fatty acids test, which is a simple blood spot test that can tell us the levels of omega-6 and omega-3 within your body. So it can tell us if there are inflammatory or anti-inflammatory fatty acids. Next up, optimizing your nutrition. We do this in order to balance your blood sugar, strengthen your gut and your liver, and optimize the intake of key nutrients and hormone balancing foods. So there are several steps that we take in order to achieve this with our clients. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all of these steps, and they are individualized to the person. But what I can tell you, top tip for today that everyone can start doing is include cruciferous vegetables into your daily meals. And these include cabbage, broccoli sprouts, cauliflower, bok choy, and Brussels sprouts. So we want to add in cruciferous vegetables because they are potent, full of antioxidants, and they have a lot of fiber to help keep the bowel movements. But they also contain a compound called indole-3-carbinol. And indole-3-carbinol then converts into DIM, D-I-M. And this can help shift the estrogen from that toxic estrogen to the more protective estrogen. It also helps the liver clear estrogen out of the body. And cruciferous vegetables have found to be anti-inflammatory for the liver. So if you want to use the term superfood, it should be for cruciferous vegetables. Step number 3 is supplements. So supplements are always individually based, and preferably we do this after having tests. There are a whole load of supplements and herbal blends out there aimed at balancing female hormones. And what we often hear is, well, it's natural, it can't hurt me. And while supplements can be very helpful and sometimes necessary addition, we shouldn't forget that herbs and concentrated nutrients are powerful. They have an impact on our body, and they are very often contraindicated with medication and or your health diagnosis. So please check with someone who is qualified to do a medical interactions check before you take something that was suggested by your auntie's neighbor's hairdresser who read it in a blog article 2 years ago. So I personally am not a huge fan of using loads of supplements. I like to keep it down to the essential and to be targeted with what we're using. And most common supplements I tend to recommend are magnesium, which helps with sleep, constipation, and cramps. Fish oils, because most of us are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And protein powders, because these can be very helpful in helping to keep your blood sugar levels stable. They're very handy if you're adding them into fruit smoothies, for example. And the one supplement I can recommend for you today is an Epsom salts bath. So Epsom salts baths are fantastic for getting magnesium into the skin. Magnesium is very easily absorbed through the skin into the body. Epsom salts also have sulfur, and sulfur is essential for our liver detoxification. The cruciferous vegetables also have sulfur in them, so that's also an added benefit to them. And of course, having an Epsom salts bath after a long, hard day is nice and relaxing and can help you get a good night's sleep.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so step number 4 is to reduce the negative impact of stress on your body. Now, we probably all have a certain level of stress in our lives, right? And very often it's very difficult to completely remove that stress or remove the source of stress. But what we can do is reduce the negative impact that stress has on our body. And the way we can do that is through a combination of food and certain lifestyle techniques. Now, in terms of food, there's a few things that you'll need to do here. But the one thing that I normally always suggest to start with is to make sure that your meals are very high in antioxidants, because antioxidants are substances that help to prevent or reduce the damage to your cells that can be caused by stress. The second thing that I would also suggest that you prioritize is to make sure that your nutrition includes enough foods that will support your gut health. Why? Because your gut is actually one of the first parts of your body that gets negatively affected when you are chronically stressed. And if your gut is out of balance, that then later down the line, this can actually lead to other health problems as well. So you really want to make sure that your gut is balanced and healthy. So that's food. And then in terms of lifestyle techniques, these are really very tailored to each specific individual and what works for them, right? So some of the techniques that we often use when we work with clients are meditation, different kinds of relaxation techniques, and also breath work. But for you, it might be something else, right? So it doesn't need to be necessarily these three. So one thing that I suggest that you start with, and that is very easy to implement in your day-to-day life, is to include in your daily routine some meditation. Now, this doesn't need to be a lot of time, right? It doesn't need to be 30 minutes or more. You can actually start with just 5 or 10 minutes, and even that will make a significant difference. Now, if you haven't meditated before, don't worry about it. There's actually a lot of very easy to use mobile apps out there that offer guided meditations and that will help you get started. So two that I really like are Headspace and Calm, but there's also many others out there that are equally good. Step number 5 is to optimize your sleep and your movement routine. Now, when it comes to sleep, we're not only talking about the number of hours that you need to sleep, right? It's also very important to optimize your sleeping environment and also your pre-bed routine, because that will help you make sure that you don't only get enough sleep in terms of the number of hours, but that the sleep that you get is also deep and restorative. In terms of movement, again, this really has to be tailored to you specifically, right? It has to be tailored to the life stage that you're in, to your health situation, your personal circumstances, and also to your daily routine and preferences. So for example, if you're someone who travels a lot, right, then we need to find a kind of exercise that fits best to that routine and that lifestyle and that schedule, because if it doesn't, then you're probably not going to be doing it for very long. So one thing that I would suggest that you start with to help you optimize your sleep is to go to bed before 11 p.m. Now, why is this important? Well, if you look at the research, it shows that the kind of sleep that is the deepest and most restorative, during which your body repairs and regrows tissues, happens mainly in the early hours of the night. So between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. So if you go to bed before 11 p.m., then your chances of getting the most of that deep restorative sleep are much greater than if you go to bed later at night. And that will, of course, also have a positive impact, not only on your hormone balance, but also on your overall health. And then lastly, step number 6 is to minimize your exposure to xenoestrogens. And xenoestrogens, again, are those disruptive chemicals that can cause issues with your hormone balance. So as I mentioned earlier, these can be found, for example, in body products, in cleaning products, in food, in different types of food storage, plastic food storage, for example, and also in certain types of cooking equipment. So knowing what you're using, reviewing that, and then replacing whatever is necessary to minimize that exposure is also very important for your hormones. And one tip that I would give you today that you can start with is, if you're using plastic water bottles right now, try to replace them with the ones that are made from glass or from stainless steel, because that will really help to reduce your exposure to certain endocrine disruptors like BPA that can cause problems with your hormones. So to recap, the 6 steps that you need to take if you want to balance your hormones naturally are: 1, testing; 2, you need to optimize your nutrition; 3, support your hormone balance with targeted and individualized supplements; 4, you need to reduce the impact of stress; optimize your sleep and movement, and then lastly, minimize your exposure to xenoestrogens from your environment. And I can promise you that if you implement these steps in the right way, you will not only balance your hormones and improve how you feel right now, but you will also improve your overall and long-term health. Now, you probably know, and maybe you've even experienced that yourself, that knowledge and knowing what to do is normally not the hardest part, right? The hardest part is normally implementing all of these steps and making them a part of your daily routine. And because we know that as well through our work with clients over the years, we have decided to put together a full hormone balancing program through which we will work with you directly to help you implement all of these steps and truly balance your hormones. Now, because this is the first time that we're launching this program, and we really want to make sure that everybody in the program get our full attention and as much help as we can give, we have decided to limit the number of places in this program to only 20. Now, you guys are actually the first ones that we're sharing this with, and you'll also be the first ones that have an opportunity to participate in this program. And then tomorrow and in the next couple of days, we will also share it via our social media, via our mailing lists, and invite others to join. So we expect that these 20 spaces will be filled pretty quickly. Now, if you've enjoyed this session and found it valuable and would like to learn more about the program and explore whether it is the right fit for you, then Carrie and I want to give you an opportunity to book a free discovery call with us, where we can discuss your specific situation in more detail and also have a chat about whether this program might be the right fit for you. So if you would like to book that call, then you can go to the link that you see on your screen. So norishiconsulting.com/hormones-discovery-call. And just remember that we only have 20 spaces available. So if you are interested, I would really encourage you to book that call as soon as you can. So with that, we have come to the end of the workshop. And if you have any more questions, you're welcome to message us directly, or we can also discuss all of your questions on this call. Thank you again for joining us for this workshop. Have a wonderful week ahead, and we look forward to staying connected. Bye for now.